Setting up your presentation when comparing two situations that are identical. We call it apple-to-apple comparison. Now, there's going to be a lot of situations where customers are introducing different scenarios or they're re-quoting with a completely different situation, but they're comparing the old payment. Now, it's very important to educate the customer that the only way we could compare two situations on an apple-to-apple comparison, everything has to match. So number one, for you to calculate two scenarios and to determine the options, you're going to have to make sure everything matches. Now review the deck page and the FSC to make sure that the information matches on both. So for instance, if a customer is quoting 3 vehicles with us, but their previous policy only shows 2, this is not an apple-to-apple comparison. It's 2 different scenarios. So you're going to use a different approach. You're most likely going to have to re-quote them with their previous company, adding the other vehicle, before you could actually introduce the option that we have. Now, if everything matches and we're quoting 3 cars and they have 3 cars on their current policy, then at least we're able to compare to see if we have something more affordable. Also, when you're comparing an apple-to-apple comparison, you have to make sure that everything matches. You got to make sure that the address, the zip code, all the drivers, the date of birth, the type of license, the coverages, the vehicles, everything has to match for you to successfully compare 2 different scenarios with an apple-to-apple comparison. Number 2, don't go based on what the customer is telling you. You must call, get a deck page, compare everything, compare it to the actual declaration page. Number 3, if they're not identical situations, it doesn't become an apple-to-apple comparison. So your goal is going to be to follow one of the approaches that's going to help you sell them a policy. So now you're going to re-quote them, you're going to add value, you're going to use justifying factors, you're going to use the rest of the tools to at least educate them and convince them on the option that we have. But once again, keep in mind, an apple-to-apple comparison requires the information to match. It has to be identical. Everything has to be exactly the same.